On Thursday, launched a campaign to meet the $16 billion access to COVID-19 tools, accelerator funding gap, and $6.5 billion in country delivery costs in a call to end the pandemic as a global emergency in 2022. The ACT Accelerator is a partnership of leading agencies that are providing low and middle income countries with tests, treatments, vaccines, and personal protective equipment. Lena E. Igwenyebe reports.
Grant funding is urgently required from governments to fund the work of the ACT Accelerator agencies. These investments will allow them to procure essential tools to fight COVID-19. The partnerships brings together governments, scientists, philanthropists, businesses, civil society, and global health organizations such as Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, and the UN's health agency, WHO. The co-chairs of the ACT Accelerator Facilitation Council, which provides high-level political leadership to advocate for resource mobilization, recently wrote to more than 50 rich countries to encourage fair share contributions. The financing framework is calculated on the size of their national economies and what they will gain from a faster global economic and trade recovery. The World Health Organization's Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says the biggest barrier people face to ending the pandemic as a global health emergency is ensuring all people in every country have access to COVID-19 tests, vaccines, and treatments, stressing COVID isn't finished with us.
Depending on where you live, it might feel like the COVID-19 pandemic is almost over, or it might feel like it is at its worst. But wherever you live, COVID isn't finished with us. This knows no borders. And as we all know from Omicron, any feeling of safety can change in a moment. We know this virus will continue to evolve. But we're not defenseless. We have the tools to prevent this disease, to test for it, and to treat it. Where people have access to those tools, this virus can be brought under control.
WHO's chief stresses the need for an urgent financing gap while calling on every higher income country to play a part in fully funding the ACT Accelerator.
As outlined in the financing framework we're launching today, the ACT Accelerator requires $23 billion to save lives, address the threat of Omicron, and prevent even more dangerous variants emerging. That includes an urgent financing gap of $16 billion for the ACT Accelerator itself, with the remaining $6.5 billion to be self-financed by middle-income countries, supported by multilateral development banks.
Although more than 4.7 billion COVID-19 tests have been administered globally since the beginning of the pandemic, the WHO report shows only about 22 million tests have been administered in low-income countries, comprising only 0.4% of the global total. Only 10% of people in low-income countries have received at least one vaccine dose. Joining the briefing via video teleconference, President of South Africa and co-chair ACT Accelerator, Cyril Ramaphosa said the longer inequitable access to COVID-19 vaccines, tests and treatments persist, the longer the pandemic will persist.
The funding gap of $16.2 billion pales in comparison to what the developed economies have spent on their domestic responses. As co-chairs, South Africa and Norway have written to more than 50 heads of state and government asking them to contribute their fair share of financing to ACT Accelerator agencies.
Jonas Gahr Store, the Prime Minister of Norway and co-chair ACT Accelerator, saluted UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for raising the issue in all UN contexts available.
All political leaders must now do what they can to close this financing gap. We know that unless COVID-19 tools become available to all, it is no mystery, infection rates will stay high, and patients, health systems, and economies will suffer. And new viral strains may evolve, posing a threat to all of us once again. So investing in ACT-A is the mutual interest of all countries.
The Access to COVID-19 Tools ACT Accelerator is a groundbreaking global collaboration to accelerate development, production, and equitable access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines. Now, ACT Accelerator calls for fair share-based financing of $23 billion to end the pandemic as a global emergency in 2022. A diverse group of governments have agreed on a new financing framework developed in support of the ACT Accelerator, which makes fair share requests of rich countries to contribute to the global fight against COVID-19. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Lena Igwenyiba.